Imagination and creativity. Two words in the English language. Two words that encompass a greater depth and richness than you may have ever realised. Two words that are fundamental to education. So take a moment. What is imagination to you? Why is imagination so important? I asked 3 children and here is what they had to say.
Well, it's like dreaming out loud, I guess. You know, like playing out loud kind of thing.
It means that it's not real.
It's a place where you can be who you want to be and pretend.
In the words of psychologist John Dewey, imagination is to look at things as if they could be otherwise. It is the capacity to conceive of what is not and the process of seeing beyond. Imagination brings us the power to raise questions. It provides us with clarity and endless possibilities. Imagination allows us to embark on a journey of discovery. And without a well-nourished imagination, creativity simply cannot exist. Which brings us to our next point. What is creativity and why is it so important? I asked some children and this is how they responded.
It means that you're making a spider and you get stuck and then you make a plan.
When you think something's happening, but it's actually not. It's happening inside your mind, but it's not in real life. And you think it's going to happen eventually, but sometimes it doesn't.
Creativity is about designing and doing the thing that you designed.
Creativity is originality, but it also incorporates so much more. Creative ideas are effective and useful. They are unexpected, novel, and valuable. Creativity is a habit that needs to be encouraged. It's a life attitude. Did you know that creativity can also be conceptualized in 4 ways using the 4C model? These include mini C, little c, pro C, and big C. So teachers, please stop for a moment and consider, how are you imaginative and creative in your everyday life? What about in your teaching practice? Do you acknowledge the place of imagination and creativity in education? Firstly, it's important we clear a few things up. Despite what you may have heard, everyone has an imagination. Think about it like this. If you can dream and ask questions, then you can imagine. Secondly, how imagination works is not a mystery. That's right, we are all capable of describing and understanding it. And thirdly, imagination can be taught, nurtured, and cultivated within all. Teachers, imagination and creativity in the classroom really begins with you. How can your students demonstrate their creativity if you constantly doubt your own creative abilities? You need to model it. Just because you aren't the world's best painter, drawer, dancer, or designer does not mean you're uncreative. Creativity is about so much more than the concrete. Creative teaching is about using imaginative approaches to make learning more interesting and effective. And I understand that this can be rather challenging at times, especially when you are held to such conventional, standardized tests which are out of your control. These assessments teach your students to learn and think in specific ways. They teach them that there is only one correct answer amongst many wrong ones. They allow for no flexibility. Where possible, children need to be assessed in ways that promote divergent, critical, and creative thinking. However, there are many pedagogical approaches that do characterise the imaginative and creative teacher, and I'm sure you are already doing many of these right now. Educators who encourage students to brainstorm, share their thoughts, pose questions, identify problems and issues, find personal relevance in lessons, explore their interests, take ownership of their learning, and consider alternative perspectives are promoting imagination and creativity. When you identify explicit learning outcomes, inspire, motivate, embrace mistakes, stimulate curiosity, apply Bloom's taxonomy, plan for creativity, use constructivist approaches such as group work, involve students in the establishment of routines, encourage divergent thinking, allow time for idea development, and implement effective behaviour management, you are being an imaginative and creative teacher. And let's not forget when you view creativity as important as literacy and numeracy education. Because regardless of what you think, regardless of what society thinks, it is. Interestingly enough, teachers always seem to draw on students' prior knowledge in their lessons, which certainly can be effective. But why don't you shake it up a bit? Why don't you try starting with what your students can imagine? The possibilities are endless. Why is this so important, you may ask? How will the inclusion of informed imaginative and creative approaches in the classroom benefit you as a teacher? Well, without these approaches, education is nothing but empty. Imagination and creativity not only makes education relevant to your students, but also to you. It's what motivates you. And when you're motivated, I'm sure you can agree that you become a more effective teacher. Your students are also the future, and they need to be educated holistically. You don't want to create walking encyclopedias. You want to create active citizens who can make informed decisions. What about your students? How do they demonstrate their imagination and creativity in the classroom? Well, when they connect their ideas with one another, ask why and what if, draw links, recognize patterns, make decisions, empathize, take risks and action, confront problems in new ways, reflect and assess, stand up for their beliefs regardless of what other people say, and overcome challenges. They are illustrating their own imagination and creativity. Your students are imaginative and creative when they buy ideas low and sell them high, when they acknowledge which of their ideas are worth chasing and which are not, when they believe in themselves, when they are more concentrated on the task because of interest and determination rather than potential rewards, and when they think analytically by questioning assumptions. And your students are also showing their abilities to be imaginative and creative when they are prepared to be wrong. This is a massive component of creativity. Too often, mistakes are stigmatized, and this achieves nothing but educating children out of their creativity. So remember, next time your students raise their hands to answer a question, or just have a go, they are really demonstrating their creative capacities to you. Which brings us to these questions. How does informed imagination and creativity in the classroom benefit your students? Why is it so important for you to foster imaginative and creative learners? Because creativity has in fact been described as the most important economic resource of the 21st century. Student creativity is considered one of the most significant educational goals in the world. In a society developing more rapidly than ever, individuals are constantly approached by new tasks and situations. Your students need to be lifelong learners who can adapt to these changes, adapt to the unfamiliar, and think in novel ways. They need to be able to think creatively to overcome problems. Routine and procedural skills are not needed nearly as much in workplaces as they previously were. Rather, students need to be equipped with skills that that they can transfer into other aspects of their lives, into their futures. They need to be prepared for jobs that don't even yet exist. So teachers, I think it's very clear that imagination and creativity have a central place in education. We need to be imaginative and creative teachers. We need to nurture imaginative and creative students. By incorporating approaches which foster imagination and creativity in your classrooms, you as a teacher, as well as your students, will be benefited in more ways than one.